And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of Women of Color and Confidence. My name is Amber Rose West. I am your host, and today I am joined by Shannon Webb. We are going to be discussing Black and plus size representation in the aerial arts, and I'm so extremely excited about this conversation. Welcome, Shannon.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Shannon. I am 26 and I live in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. Been here for about 7 years. I moved from Philadelphia for college and then just never left. I just wrapped up my master's in clinical research and I work in the field. So super duper stressful time for us just because like COVID and everything is work from home now. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell these days.
I love it. And I love the art behind you. It's so beautiful. You said you made those pieces?
Yes, these are all me.
I love it. Is that a hobby that you picked up during quarantine or just been a
it's been a while. I was just like a huge thing in high school, and then when college set in, like I didn't have time to ever paint or anything. And then with like everything being home now, I had some time over the summer, and I think the one on the right or the left for you is probably like the oldest piece I've had since before my last move. But the rest of them are COVID pieces. Had some time.
Right. I know. I've definitely picked up a new hobby. I picked up embroidering during quarantine because I just was like, I need something to do with my hands. And
that's real.
Yeah. And I do love painting. I used to own an art gallery in San Diego. So I have like painting's so fun for me, but I also feel like I have to be in a bit of a space where like with embroidery, I can like pick it up for a little bit and be like, okay, I can put you down.
And put it down.
Yeah.
I'm a project finisher when it comes to like painting, where I'm just going to sit here until I finish it and this is it. But anything else, like laundry will sit there for 3 days. But a painting, no, it's got to be finished that day and that sitting.
I love it. I'm like, teach me your ways. I'll let a painting sit for 6 months and be like, at some point I should.
It needs a little more. Yeah. Take it off the wall, touch it up, put it back up.
Yes. I'm so excited to get into this chat with you. I really want to start at this place of self-confidence because what you shared with me about self-confidence just made my whole spirit tingle. When I asked you what self-confidence means to you, you said loving and appreciating who I am as is and caring about myself so much so that I want to be better. And I'm really curious if this is something that has been with you for a long time or if this is a newly adapted idea about your self-confidence.
Probably over the last few years. I think the first like beginning of like me just really just caring about myself is probably started when I like moved away from college. Like it was just me and my sister lived in North Carolina, and I was just like, well, no one's gonna love me nearly as much as my parents are, but like I want to be a close second up there. Like I spend so much time with like me that I have to be able to really just enjoy who I am as a person. And once that came around, I was just, it's gonna be a kick. And then from there on, just wanting to be better is just something I've been working on over the last few years, just not making the comparison to other people so much as comparing myself from where I am now and wanting to be better than myself and nobody else. It's one of those things where like comparison is a real thief of joy. So the only person you really want to be comparing yourself to is probably yourself.
Praise it. I love it. Yes. And I love that you said to be better because I feel like there's a lot of pressure about being, especially in something like the aerial arts. We'll talk about this more, but I feel like there is this like idea of perfection that people tend to strive towards, and it's like instead of trying to be perfect, how about just trying to be better? And I think that that's such a beautiful message of progress over perfection.
Definitely.
I love it. Okay, so tell me how you found the aerial arts.
So there's a few for my beginning story. My sister got married back in like 2014, and we went for a bachelorette party. and it was a lot of fun. And I was definitely not in like my best physical shape ever. So a few years later, they had like a Groupon online for the aerial classes, and my job was offering to pay for them. We had like a fitness type membership where you got like a reimbursement or whatever if you did a fitness membership or anything that involved like physical activity. So once I found out my job did it, I was like, I'm going to get the Groupon. I'm going to go for a couple of aerial yoga classes, and my job paid for it. And so I maxed out as much as I could for my job. And then I just realized that I really just enjoyed it. So I just kept going back. Every year I maxed it out, and then I would just keep going even after my job was done reimbursing for it. And I don't know, I just fell in love and I just couldn't help myself.
I love that. And it's really great to hear that you work for a company. My company is the same. They do a health stipend, a monthly health stipend that allows you to like try new things and gives you the opportunity to go out and what you wouldn't normally. I think that when it comes to like spending my money, I'm always kind of like, I want to do what I already know I'm gonna like, or
Exactly.
yeah, or like a gym is like typical, so I'll just like do the gym and like take a class or whatever. But it allows you to explore a little bit more, and that's actually something that I wished more companies would do, and that they would allow for the opportunity with something that's health focused that allows the employee to choose what it is they want to do.
Yeah, I think for a lot of the companies in like clinical research tend to do it just because like we work in a health field. So you kind of can't not want your employees to like live healthier, better lives. So it's one thing that's really nice about the field is that like there are a lot of companies that offer like health stipends, and you probably wouldn't know about them unless you're looking for them, which is also fantastic because I had been there for almost 6 months and I had no idea that we even had a health stipend. And one of my coworkers was like, yeah, there's a yoga class on 6th floor. Like, do you want to go? And I was like, yeah. Is it like a free yoga class? Yeah. But like also we offer ones that aren't like free as well, but your health stipend will pay for it. And I was just like, I'm sorry, we have a health stipend?
Yeah.
Like, that's anything about this. But apparently it's really common, and like especially in healthcare fields where they definitely just cover. And I had no idea it was a thing, but it's really fortunate, and a lot of companies should really invest in their employees.
Yes.
You'd find them a lot happier, I'm sure.
Yes. And I think that the idea of offering something like a health stipend is really undervalued, but it really does not only boost morale, but it boosts that individual's like desire to come to work, to feel good about themselves, to feel confident about their work. And I feel like some people just see it as like this cost expense that makes that person feel good, but there's so much benefit for the not only the employee but the company as an employee there. That's so wonderful. And I love that you were like, what? Wait, we have what?
Yeah, no one wants to tell you about it, but it exists, and a lot of companies tend to have it, and it's just one of those things where like every job should just start offering health stipends.
Note to everybody out there, go check your company's policy and see if you have a health stipend, because they exist. Okay, so you got into the classes, you had this support from your company, you start falling in love with it. I would love to talk about what it was like, your experiences inside the studios. Like, were there Black people there? Were there plus size people there? Did you feel like, how did you feel going into the studio?
For me, I've had probably like a really warm, like welcoming experience, which a lot of women of color like don't necessarily experience in aerial. Because when you first go, you're already nervous, especially if you're going by yourself. And so the last thing you're thinking about is like whether everybody in the room like looks like you color wise. But the first thing you think about is like everyone else's fitness level when you first go. If it's not their first class, you're like slightly more intimidated. And then it's like, oh, it's not a whole bunch of new people. It's people who have been here before, who are really fit. And then after a while, like when it starts to sink in that like maybe you're not the most fit person in the room, and then you look around and you're like, hey, I'm the only person who looks like me. In addition, like not only am I more shapely than most people, like there is no one who looks like me in terms of my skin tone either. And it can be a different like experience. I've really been lucky with like the instructors I've had who are just very much so at aerial is for every body kind of people. And I've been very lucky to have instructors like that. But I've seen it like other studios where it's not the same. And so I was really lucky to have like this warm, welcoming experience, even where like people don't look like me. Just to know that like they really genuinely believe like aerial literally is for any body type. You can come in and you're gonna feel at home. And it's definitely different having visited other studios of a community at the one that I go to. So I'm really fortunate, fortunately.
Good. I love that. And it sounds like there is this like confidence building and boosting that not only are you learning aerial, but you also feel included as part of the community in your studio
Exactly.
too. So it allows you to learn more. I
There's
freaking love
more,
it.
it's nice.
Yeah. So for those out there who don't know what the aerial arts are, I guess first, can you kind of like in your own words describe what aerial art is, and then can you tell us a little bit about like what apparatuses you started on, where you are now, what you hope to be on in the
Ooh.
future?
I think for the most part, when I like explain what aerial is for people, I immediately give them the image of like Cirque du Soleil. So it's usually like the pretty much the only image that people really have of aerial if they don't do like circus arts.
Mm-hmm.
So trapeze is usually the most commonly known,
Mm-hmm.
and my least favorite apparatus personally.
Mine too. It's really scary. It's like you
It is
swing.
terrifying.
I know.
Absolutely.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
There's lyra, which is like a metal hoop, usually like 36 inches or so. It's suspended in the air. And then there are silks. There are two different kinds of fabrics. There's sling, also known as hammocks, where it's kind of shaped like a U shape. And then there are silks where they're separated. And I think I've literally done all of them at one point in time. I think my most common class is probably silks, just because it's the series that I've done the longest. And lyra is definitely my favorite and my last picked up, but comes just far more naturally for me. It's just a lot more comfortable of an apparatus. It's a nice steel metal bar on a regular basis, so lots of bruising, but it's my personal favorite. And then there's some unusual apparatuses where they have like cubes and heart shapes and anchors, depending on what studio you go to, whether they have like fancier apparatuses, they can be custom ordered. I definitely personally would love to have a cube at home, but I definitely don't have the space for it. But it's on my top 10 list where I'm like, I would love to have a cube at home. It's really cool. It's kind of like all of the apparatuses in one. It's just a lot of metal bar.
Yeah, you know what? I actually never thought about that before, but the cube is a lot like all of them in one.
It's very cool. It's a different experience because like you get kind of the feel of like having a fabric, because there's usually straps at the top. And then it's kind of like, oh, you get a bar, but then there's also multiple shapes you can do. It's really pretty. It's this experience.
I love it. I love it so much. Awesome. So I found you on Instagram. I love your Instagram. She is at Ariel Shenanigans. Please go find her Instagram and follow her. It's just so fun and interesting. And you know what I really love about your social media is that it's a mix of like performing and showing off like how you use the aerial apparatuses, but then also kind of like, this is the technique I'm learning right now, right? It's like, it could be like you're all dressed up in one photo and you're like in sweats with your hair tied up in another one. It's like very raw and real to the learning of aerial arts. And I'm curious, you know, you said that there's minimal representation in studios. How are you finding the representation for not only Black aerialists, but plus size aerialists online?
Lots of hashtags. I didn't realize how many of us like existed, but one of my friends who started our series go in 6 weeks increments at our studio. So she started 6 weeks before my first 6 weeks. She now does aerial yoga as an instructor. And she is curvier, but she is technically a straight size. But she's one of like our larger instructors, which is pretty not as common. And she's just amazing. And she sent me a page one day and she's like, I think you would really like this Facebook page. It's just a whole bunch of like curvy women who also do aerial. And then I realized that there were like a ton of hashtags for like curvy yogis, could be aerialists and like plus size aerialists, and they exist. And the same for like Black aerialists. One person who owns a studio out in LA who is phenomenal reached out to me and was just like, hey, I've got a Facebook group of like women who are Black who do aerial. I would love for you to join. And it's just like this grown into like this really large like Black aerialist community, and it's a whole lot more than like I thought would be out there, because I'm so not used to seeing that kind of representation. So it was a really like thrilling thing to know that there are not just students in the group, but there are also instructors in the group, and then people who are like intermediate level who have been doing it for years and just don't ever want to teach. They just want to continue to learn.
To practice.
And it's really cool. Yeah.
I love that. And it's one of the things that I absolutely love about social media is that when you think you're the only one, because you're the only one you see right here, and you get online and you're like, there's more of us.
Exactly.
So excited. Oh, I'm so glad that you found that community and that you have that support, because it really can be a beautiful thing, whether you're learning or teaching, having like-minded, similar people around you. I did something very similar when I moved to Colorado. I was in a yoga group, like a Denver yoga group, and I said, I'm looking for classes that are primarily like Black students and are led by Black teachers. And I got, halfway through as people who were like, why do you care? Why does it matter? And other people who were like, here's where you find the studios and those teachers, right? And it's interesting because I feel like people sometimes don't understand what it's like to be in a space all by yourself.
Exactly.
And even if you have the confidence to say, I love that, I'm going back to that class, even though, nobody looks like me there, but I want to do this, that it can be really like a continuously or like a chronic jarring experience.
Yeah.
So you continue to do it, you have the confidence to do it, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't like jerk you around.
It's really isolating.
Right. And so to be able to find a community that like understands or gets it, even if it's online, is such a like, thank you,
Small huzzah moments where you're just like, thank God there are people who actually like look like me. Finding both is always a trouble, but occasionally there's one or two where it's just like, there's gonna be people who both look like me and sound like me, and that is like, oh, the best.
So have you had people online like reaching out to you, like saying things like that?
That's the coolest thing ever. Is like I've had several people just like shoot me a DM on Instagram, and I'm just like, okay, so do we know each other? And it's just always like, hey, like I know we don't know each other, or like I've been to this studio before and I've never seen anyone who like looks like what I look like, and I didn't think it was possible for me to like go to an aerial class because I didn't think I had the right body type. Or I've had one girl who does hooping, and I have never been able to like do hula hooping because I just don't have enough rhythm for it. It's just never worked out. And she reached out to me and she's like, I saw your video. I have a hula hoop at home, but never so much good at it. And she's like, I saw your video and I found it from like a hoop link. And then I saw your lyra photos and I was like, I've always wanted to try it. And I didn't think that I would be able to do it because I'm plus size. And that was just like the smallest moment where I'm just like, oh my gosh, other people like feel this way on a regular basis and like aren't trying things that are new because they don't see people who look like them in it.
I'm going to be really honest with you. I've been hooping I started in 2008. So what, 12 years? And I like the lyra. I've been in the lyra a couple times and I've always been very intimidated. And part of the reason that I've not gone to like a full class or a full like session is because when I go to those classes, I don't see anyone like me. And I tend to be on the bigger side too. I'm a chunky girl. And it always makes me so nervous and self-conscious, like be in that space. So like, I love to play on a lyra that's like in a park, right? Where I don't have to be like in a gym or around people. But like hooping, I'm like, I could pick up a hoop and do that freaking anywhere, right? But it's so interesting too, because I feel like these are the implications that we put on ourselves, right? And it's almost as if when you walk into a space and you don't see yourself represented, then you automatically think, well, it's probably not for me then, right? If you walk into a space where there are no plus size people, this is probably not a space for me because nobody else here is that. And one, I freaking love that you were like, boop, 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 get that thought out of here. I am doing this. But also that you are having people acknowledge you for that strength and that courage And then this was something that you like tried on a whim. You weren't like, I'm gonna be the next Black plus size aerialist. You were like, I want to try a class. And then you loved it and you kept doing it and you're being acknowledged for that. And I just think it's such a like authentic and beautiful way to come into something that lights you up so much, you know, to have other people recognize that. Okay, so I would love to chat with you about what are some of the difficulties that you have being plus size and aerial?
Definitely a lot of modifications in certain moves, especially when I first learned them. Because when I first started, I definitely had like no arm strength. Like that was not my forte. So a lot of modifications and getting into moves, and even for like just student showcase performances, like finding outfits for that is just like brutal sometimes. We're just like, are they gonna make this at 18? I have no idea. And I really like this and I know it won't come in my size.
Mhm.
So it's just like it's just a regular like challenge on a regular basis just to like just find outfits for like photographs, which fortunately are way easier because you can always wear like a regular outfit for a photograph. Like you can make it work, but for like showcases where everything has to stay buttoned or stay zipped, it is really hard to find like plus size outfits. And just like in general, when you go to a class, the instructors aren't always instructors that are going to teach you how to modify moves for your body type. I have been very, very lucky. My longest having instructor who does both aerial yoga and silts, and also lyra, she teaches kind of everything. She has been my instructor for maybe 2+ years now, and she had just come back to aerial after having a baby. So like she got that like things need to be modified to adjust to your body shape, and she has just been phenomenal about like helping being able to like get into moves that you wouldn't think you'd be able to get into because you're like, is this gonna fit around my waist? Like, am I gonna be able to make it up there? She has definitely been like amazing, just knowing that like your body is gonna change from the time that you start aerial to when you're like at an intermediate level, and how much different it's going to be for you to be able to do certain moves. And so she's been amazing at being able to cater to that. And it's one of those things where like a lot of instructors won't get because they're usually smaller size and have been smaller size the entire time they've done aerial, where they've had like no major body changes to know that you need those modifications with like different size bodies.
Yeah. So I think that's really important. Thank you for sharing that with us, because I know a lot of people that are in aerial and teach aerial, and I think that we tend to forget about that intersectionality that can happen if you know how to make it happen. But it tends to be such a generalized kind of like status quo space where there's a very typical body type with a very typical movements and all these things. And it's really important for us to create inclusion in all of the spaces. So learning how to do that in an aerial studio, I love it, especially with like the what to wear, not only so that you can do the moves, but that you're comfortable and you fucking look good. Like
exactly.
That's so important too, right?
It really is.
And I think that whole modification idea is so important because everybody has different muscle structures and body structures too. And if you're I remember the first class that I went to, they had me do a move where I like ripped on my shoulder. And I was like, there has to be like that felt like a 5. What's step 1? Right? Like,
right.
And I had the same experience. I went to a pole dancing class one time and they were having us do all these moves where I was like, I feel like this is level 10. Like, what happened to level 1, 2, and 3 on my first day in class?
All of those numbers.
Right. And I'm just like, I'm lost and confused, and then never went back. So yeah, the understanding how to make an inclusive space for everybody. Great tips. I love that. So this is just so wonderful. I love how glowy you are. I love how confident you speak about being an aerial artist. It's beautiful to see all body types included in something like movement. I love seeing all body types in dance, and it's like, it warms me up. I know that with the new year coming up, there's a lot of, well, there's speculation that January is going to be a lot of like lose the quarantine weight, and you know that in December I feel like once Halloween really hits, you know, women tend to
It's
beat,
true.
yeah, they beat
That's the
themselves
time.
up.
Like Thanksgiving's coming.
Yeah. And then
It's
they kind
true.
of just like, they have this whole like season of their life where they feel bad about what they're eating and their body. So, um, I want to say to everyone out there, like your body is beautiful. The extra food, the extra sweets, it doesn't change who you are as a person. I love Shannon. I love you saying that self-confidence is loving and appreciating who I am as is. And that is true for everyone. What can you love? How can you love and appreciate your body as is in this point, in the middle of the holiday season, before you get to the new year, and not beat yourself up because of what you've eaten, or maybe because you haven't exercised or you've been thrown off your routine, right? It's not about beating yourself up. So I want to, if you could, just for a minute, talk about how you love and appreciate your body doing exercise that feels good to you, not something that you're doing in an attempt to like change your body or lose weight. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've been one of those people where like maybe since I was 17ish, where it's just like, oh, like weight is highly emphasized, and it's not for me. Like I am perfectly content to know that like, oh, I went down on a jean size. That's great. But also like the number is not as important as it used to be, where I was substantially younger, where I'm just like, oh my God, I've gained 4 pounds. This is like the end of the world. And
Mm-hmm.
like, especially at a time where we're in quarantine and like we're during a global pandemic, like the last thing that I want to be
Coping.
concerned about, yeah, the last thing I want to be concerned about is like how much my scale says this week. It's one of those things where once the quarantine started, the scale went away. Like I don't have the energy, I don't have the time, like focusing on like my mental health and my physical strength over the last couple of months has been far more important than like any number scale that I possibly could imagine. So that's kind of where I'm going in the new year too, where I'm just like, let the number be the number. If my
Yeah.
health is impacted negatively, then so be it. Like there are far more important things right now than like weight loss, like protecting your mental health and just like putting your body in a space where you're happy with it, regardless of like what that number on the scale looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's definitely like in the new year, my resolutions are definitely not weight centered, but it is strength centered.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely want to make sure I'm like in the mindset of like doing my yoga as often as I can and
Mm-hmm.
weekly and continuously, because I have like the worst with consistency. Like I'm one of those people who's like, oh, I'll start a 30-day challenge for like a back bend. And then I get to day 10 and I'm like, all right, it's day 10. Like, do I have to do this again today? So it's definitely one of those like, I know for a fact that my weight is never going to be the number that I'm ever going to want it to be, where I'm like, this is my goal number. I've reached it. I'm going to stay at this number for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That just seems insane. Like your body
Yeah.
changes so much, especially as you get older. And as women, like our shapes change so much over our lifespan. There's no point in like romanticizing like, oh, I'm at a size 6 and I want to be at a
Right.
size 6 for the rest of my life. So
Right.
in the new year, like definitely making sure to make sure that my practice, my aerial yoga practice and my aerial lyra is just like where I want it to be in terms of strength and
Yeah.
progressing repeatedly, and not perfection, but like being better than where I was last year, because I've seen some major changes in like how I practice. And it's just one of those things where like I feel really good about it when it happens, where I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I got into a new move today. Like I might not get into it ever again, but it happened. And that's awesome. So that's definitely where I want to be in the new year, where I'm just like focused on like being able to be like a better version of myself from this year, and
Yeah.
hoping that like if it happens, then it happens. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. But it
Yeah.
doesn't change like how I want to feel about my body, because it's pretty great as is. I've never had any complaints. So it's one of those things where it's like, I just want to feel like me on a regular basis, even if I don't look like what I looked like previously before us being locked in houses for months. And
Mm-hmm.
that's okay.
Yeah. That's so freaking beautiful. I love it. And I really do resonate with this message of what your body can do compared to what it looks like.
Exactly.
Right? Like I'm with you. I have a workout group. We get up every morning at 5:30. We do our circuit training in the living room. And there are times like it's been really like I know that I do cope with food and I'm an emotional eater. I'm an emotional drinker too. And sometimes I'm just like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't need to beat myself up for that because I know that I'm still doing good things for my body too, right? There's a beautiful balance that happens there. And instead of focusing so much on the weight or what you look like, more of what you feel like and what you can accomplish, right?
Exactly.
I love this. This is really beautiful. And I know that the idea of strength, I think, is something that is still being built up. But it's all about a mental like focus, like a mental shift, right? And what are you going to prioritize? I love that you said like I'm not consistent at all, so I want to get in there. And that's where I'm really good. Like I can wake up 6 to 7 days a week on the dot, do the thing. But there are other things that I'm not very good at. So can I harbor some of the energy of that consistency and then move it into maybe doing something that's good for me that like I'm not really good at, like making sure my bedtime routine is in order. You know what I mean? Like how do you get the
Exactly.
energy so it's working together? I love that you said the 30-day challenge because I'm doing a 30-day split challenge because I really want to
Ooh,
do the
I love
split.
those.
Oh my
Ah, I love the split. Oh,
Oh, I like
these
really
are my
want to do the
favorite.
splits because I know they feel so good, but like I suck at that. So maybe you said back bend too, because I try to do back bend ones and then like on day 4, I'm like, ugh, oh.
I'm dying, and I'm like, I'm just gonna pick up where I left off. No one will notice, and if they do, I have a real life outside of like stretching in my living room on a regular basis. So yeah,
I think that that's a really good point too, that when you're learning anything new, I feel like we put this pressure on ourselves to like, I'm going to do 30 days in a row. And if we get to day like 7 or 8, and then we miss 9 and 10, then we go like, oh my God, I have to make up all this time. I got to make up all these days. And instead, the message here is like that you acknowledge the fact that you fell behind a little bit. And instead of trying to like cram it all,
just
catch
pick up where
up,
you left off.
pick up where you left off, and it doesn't need to fit into a first of the month to the 30th of the month. The
Exactly.
consistency of the commitment is really what matters. So not beating yourself up for not doing it the way the calendar said or what, just like let it go and adapt to your own
Exactly.
progress. My goodness, I enjoyed this talk so much. I was looking forward to it so much. You are just a beacon of beautiful light, and I'm so grateful that you are a part of the Black plus size aerialist community. And I hope that more people find you and are motivated to, I mean, of course, follow their aerial arch dreams, but I hope that they are inspired by your confidence and your drive to go and follow whatever it is that makes them feel really good. So thank you for being on the show. It was such
It's
a
my pleasure.
pleasure. You're very welcome. Okay, friends. This was my last interview of 2020. I want to thank everybody who came to watch live. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being a part of Women of Color and Confidence for 2020. I have some amazing things in store for you in 2021. I can't wait to share them with you. Stay tuned. I'll be sharing them on our Facebook and Instagram page, and I will see you for the next episode. Bye, everybody.